you're reading about a thing. But what you're reading about, you find out in the second book, isn't what you were actually reading about. You're actually following someone else who's actually reading an account. Like someone else is reading an account. So I'll give you an example. So the first book is kind of written like an obscure murder mystery. Has nothing to do with what we the reader thinks it has to do with. But it's written in such a way because a murder took place in upstate New York. An entire family was killed with the exception of one survivor. And nobody really understands what happened behind this murder. So an author who under a pen name comes out and he writes a book in the early 1980s called The Mystery or The Massacre at Slaughterhouse. And this book gives a detailed fictionalized account of what actually took place in upstate New York when this family was murdered. And this book is fictionalized, so he adds supernatural elements, the whole nine. And that's the book you and I are reading when we read it. We're actually reading this fictional character's novel of what took place in this massacre. Well, we find out that this massacre, the reason why this person was able to write this fictionalized book, which is coded, because there are entities, there are beings who know what really happened at this during this massacre at this house in upstate New York. They know what really happened. And the fact that this novel was published and they're reading this novel, which is the first book, we're actually reading the book through someone's eyes. Someone is reading and analyzing this book. And they're analyzing it because they want to know who wrote it. Who's the person that wrote this book under this pen name that has all this information about our activities and what we covered up at Slaughterhouse? And that's how the second book opens. But in a sub story in the first book is you're following this character who I kill off. He's he's on a mission, a specific mission. He's trying to achieve a specific goal for an as yet unnamed group or narrator. And so it's kind of two stories at once. And at the end of the story, when everything culminates, you finish the book, The Massacre at Slaughterhouse, and you also finish this guy's story because he gets killed at the end. So, because people kind of love this character, I wanted to write the little novella explaining his story, who he was, how he got in that position, what, well, you kind of know who he is, but like his backstory, how he got, just give people an account of who he was and how he got to where he got to this point in the story. And I gave it to this girl. I wish I could remember her name. And she would bring me pages and they were great. Like they were great. Wasn't my thing, but like the people that I passed them on to were like, yeah, this is what we wanted. Okay. And then she hit me with Gargoyles. She's like, I got to talk to you. It's really important. I'm like, what? And she's like, I want to introduce. And I'm like, huh? Gargoyles. What are, what are we doing?
Sounds like she may have hit a wall. And
Yeah.
that wall had gargoyles on it, unfortunately.
Yeah, but you didn't have to do anything special, but just tell this guy's story. And you have liberty. I'm giving you the Bible on him. This is where he was born. This is when he was created. However many 100 years ago this being was created. This is when it was created. This is where. This is who created him. Here you go. You can now do whatever you want.
She wanted more agency.
Yeah, it makes me think a little bit about Lovecraft Country, just the way you're describing the story, and that the novel is the story of, I don't know if you watched it, but
it's very vampire centric.
Right.
But when you read the first book, one of the things that I don't know how it's going to work, because as a reader, you think that it has more to do with like something demonic perhaps took place, but it's not. You understand what I'm saying?
Maybe she thought she wanted to make the demonic thing more real with the gargoyles or something.
Well, I mean, there's vampires in the book. There's this whole world of supernatural stuff going on in the book, and I just don't know. My mind, Ish's mind, never looked at like gargoyle mythos, and it doesn't even fit in. And I guess if I was willing to be flexible, because there is a a primogenitor, and there is an explanation for why some of these things exist and are running around on Earth, but I just never accounted for gargoyles, and I don't think that my world was ready to grow in that direction. I mean, I haven't considered it since.
It's just very interesting that she just, that this was the hill she died on. She's like, it's gargoyles or it's nothing.
Yeah,
and
she
she's
was.
like, you know what?
I mean,
I'm out of here.
I mean, yeah,
I think of some very specific stuff that I've experienced that is similar, but I can't go into too much detail because, my job is to create stories and shows, and if I go into too much detail, I'm talking about my coworkers, and that's no good. But sometimes
I'd be interested to hear.
I can't go into too much detail, but sometimes you present a premise and then you hand that premise over to someone that's been appointed as a director, for example, and they take that premise in a direction that to you makes no fucking sense whatsoever. And at first, when that happens, I'm always like, what the hell are you doing? But sometimes in the end, it actually makes what I created even better. But my kind of short-sighted viewpoint of like, this is the world I created, you need to stay within this world or else the story doesn't work, sometimes can prevent me from seeing the bigger picture and realizing that the things I'm stuck on aren't important to the whole.
I'm glad you said that because I've been there too. Like I know exactly what you mean because I've been there too, where and I'm just again dealing with better writers, right? One of the things I can write, but my strength, like as a writer, I know my strengths, right? Like my strengths are, one, I can build a story. Two, I have strong characterization. But better than that, my biggest strength, better than the actual writing process, is that I can plot and build a story. Like that's where my strength is. You understand what I'm saying? Like I'm a storyteller more so than I'm a writer, right? I'm a storyteller. I can really build, and because I come from the comic book medium as a kid, the way my approach is kind of different. That's what appeals to most people, is my approach, because I know how to plant seeds because I'm used to reading like serial books, right? Like that are, since I was 7-8 years old, I'm used to reading books that are serialized. So you don't get everything, in 23 or 23 to 32 pages. You get, especially reading Chris Claremont, right? Like he plants seeds, that come to fruition, 12 issues, which is a year down the line, but all the seeds were there. You understand what you can go back and like, okay, everything checks out. You can point A, point B. It's not immediately obvious, but everything checks out and everything adds up. And I get why we're here now. All the seeds were planted. Here's the fruit. And that's kind of how I write. That's my approach. So for me, it's always the long game for me, right? So sometimes I don't see like what you're describing. I don't see when somebody brings or introduces something, and like I don't see how it can. But I've found out through experience. I've had a friend add to. So I used to have a. So when I don't want to write my core material, I like to write throwaway stories and just to keep writing. And I was working on an anthology called Paging the Mod, or Paging the Memoirs of Death, which is kind of a play on words because in the hospital, when somebody dies, we have to page the mod, which is like I forget, it's an acronym for like the morgue, right? Like the morgue wing of the hospital. Like we have to page them to let them know there's a body that needs to be, you understand? So the book was called, and I started writing this anthology when I was working at the hospital. So I named it Paging the Mod because it's literally, my acronym for mod is Memoirs of Death. And the reason why is because it was an anthology about death, which in my world, death is like, she manifests in the form of a 7-year-old girl. Usually like, in a Sunday school dress with like, a lollipop or a popsicle, or, you know what I mean?
A white collar.
Well, that's just kind of how she manifests, how she chooses to manifest. and
green
I
dress.
just started writing these random stories about, you know, people's experiences with death. And a friend of mine, you know, I asked her to, you know, I gave her the premise and I asked her to, you know, 'cause she's a really good writer. She's actually published, Carrie. And I asked her to, you know, if she wanted to tackle a story or two. And she introduced some elements that I didn't get right away, but when she was done, like I thought it was great. I'm like, okay, I can use this and I'm keeping this. You know what I mean? Like she introduced some really good elements. She like introduced, like she's like, well, Ish, obviously like death can't be everywhere at once, right? So like she has all these angels. I'm like, okay, well, I don't, you know, like death is the character. What are we doing here? You know what I mean? She's like, yeah, but like, is she omnipresent? People don't always die at the same time, and if they, and those who do, like, how can she be in both places? And I'm like, okay, well, you're right. Like, write it, and you know what I mean. And then she kind of even took it a step further, and she goes, and what if she has unwitting agents that aren't her angels, but they're agents, and they're unwitting, and they don't even know that they're like agents. I'm like, well, what do you mean? And she came up with this dope story about this salesman who literally, he was he sold religious documents like door to door. He'd go door to door and he'd sell you a Bible or he'd sell you a Quran or whatever it is. You know, he had it in his briefcase. And everyone who received him, who would, it was a short story too, like 16 pages. Everyone who received him, you know, if he came into their house and had a conversation with them, later on that day they would die.
Okay, that's a great story, but here's the problem. People would start to be a little bit suspicious that all of these deaths happened and were in some way connected to this guy.
Well, he ends up getting, because we fleshed this character out, because he becomes, and it's interesting that you said that, because we then have, he has to deal with the realization that he's directly connected. And like, what is he? What am I? Who am I? Why? Because you're right. And like this is a character we end up fleshing out because he becomes like this really great character. He starts off in just a 16-page story of, you know, he just kind of sells death without realizing it. You know what I mean? But eventually the character, because what happens is in Page it's an anthology and they're like 15, 16-page stories. Like I have one called Life, Death, and Fruit Platters, which I wrote because I was working at the hospital and we were having a party. So I went to Top Supermarket to get a fruit platter. And on the way, I went on my lunch. And on the way there, my car skidded on the 33 and I totaled my car. I was knocked out for like 7 seconds. Totaled my car. And actually, I had my wife pick me up. And you know, the ambulance came the whole nine. I was good. I had my wife pick me up, go to Tops, get the fruit platter, and then go back to work because I was on lunch. Like I wasn't even supposed to leave. You know what I mean? And then that created this short story where exactly that happened, but it wasn't me. And the whole time the guy was driving, he's trying to reconcile, you know, is he really having this conversation with this little girl that he can only see in his rearview mirror sitting in the backseat of his car? And they just have this philosophical conversation, and then he crashes and dies. And he's literally on his way to get a fruit platter.
But then
I've got a
Go
good
ahead.
idea for something that you can use in some of your finest
Don't
works.
say gargoyles.
No,
Don't
of
say
course not.
gargoyles.
Karate cats.
Oh,
Yeah, so
yeah,
Erica,
like
you were about to
samurai
say
pizza
something?
cats.
Hey,
you were
I
about
haven't
to say
said
something,
anything
Erica?
I haven't said anything for a long time. I want you to
I'm
consider.
gonna come back to you. I'm
I
gonna
want you to
let you
consider
finish.
Karate Cats. Yeah,
Oh, you consider samurai pizza cats.
I've been patiently waiting to mention Karate
You mean like
Cats.
the cartoon Karate Cat?
Well, I mean, I guess you could compare to that. This would be original though.
I'm wondering, did you, in the story that you created, did you end up going to work? Did you go back to work after you got the fruit platter and not realize that you were dead? Or did you leave
In
that
the
idea
story?
out? Yeah.
In the story? No, he died.
Yeah.
But he knew he was gonna die. because of that's where so the conversation leads down that route. He eventually comes to the conclusion that, so here's the thing. One of the things that the character Death struggles with is, what I learned is, like, she doesn't just she shows up, she doesn't know why, but she shows up to deaths that are deemed important, or like deaths for important people, because she has all these angels that she assigns to different things. Like if it's a mass tragedy, it's a different type of angel. Like if an airplane crashes, like she's not going there, she's got an angel for that. A whole bunch of people are going to die, she sends her angels there. You know what I'm saying? They don't cause the death, they just kind of are there to make sure things go down. And so she comes, what happens is she's at odds with herself, at least in the one story, because there's a guy in the hospital who's going to die, and she's like sitting there in his room like, yo, just give up. And he's not giving up. Like, this dude is not, he don't want to die, and she don't get it. And she's like, well, if you're not going to go, why am I here? Like, she doesn't get it. Like, why am I here? Now, mind you, her story, which I'm kind of giving, like, I write, like, this is a big anthology. I kind of like writing her. I don't know that I'll ever publish it. I just do it when I need a break from my own things. So no, he doesn't. The conversation that he has is this philosophical conversation where he comes to the conclusion that he realizes who he's talking to and what's going to happen. And upon realization, he crashes and dies. And he's kind of, he kind of comes to grips with that. But there's this philosophical conversation about his life and, who he is to his family and, where he's at this point in life. And he kind of comes to grips with it, and then he crashes. It's just,
how do you,
I don't know, maybe a 6-page
how do you
story.
know that you were out for 7 seconds?
Because they told me.
Oh, so like a paramedic came or something?
No, like a car screeched to a halting stop. So I was knocked from, and it might have even been longer. I was knocked from the driver's seat to the passenger seat. So what happened was my car plunged through. I don't know if you know the 33, the 33, I remember, on Buffalo, coming from ECMC. So when you go, I was going to the west exit, and it was a sunny Sunday with a summer rain. So it wasn't like pouring. The ground was just kind of slick. And I was going too fast, and I went to exit to the west exit to go to North Buffalo to go to Tops. And I never made it into the exit. I plunged through. They have those barrels filled with water. They're
yeah,
like
because everybody goes so fast.
I plunged all the way through straight to the wall. And I was knocked from my driver's seat to my passenger seat. And I wasn't conscious because a bunch of black people screeched. They saw me and screeched to a stop on the expressway and came and knocked on the window. And they told me, like, you were out. I didn't even think I was out. Like, I didn't even think I lost consciousness. They told me, they were like, yo, you were knocked out. Because I was trying to get out of the car. And they were like, nah, the ambulance has come. We called the ambulance. Like, you were knocked out. I'm like, oh. They were like, yeah, we ran up on the car and you weren't conscious. When they knocked on the window, like, I didn't know that I lost consciousness. I just know I was in my passenger seat.
Were you wearing a seatbelt?
No. Nope. And I had an Impala with a bucket seat.
Do you wear a seatbelt now?
Absolutely. 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 Yeah. So, but they told me, they were like, yeah, you were out. And I'm like, well, I know that when I wasn't out for minutes. They were like, you're out for like, 5 to 10 seconds. So that's my 7 seconds. Like, no one really timed. It was like, okay, 7 seconds. You understand what I'm saying? But from the time they got to their car to they knocked on my window, I wasn't conscious. Although I don't recall losing consciousness, which was very credible to me, because when I used to box, I remember being knocked out and getting right back up and then not remembering that I got knocked down. Like, I'd get up, the round would end, I'd be outside the ring and not, that's kind of how like a knockout kind of works. You've probably been there, you know what I mean? Like,
I have, yes.
You can lose your memory.
Knocked myself out.
Well,
then you
go.
wake up and everybody's standing over you and you're like, why are you guys over me?
Yeah. But yeah, I had no clue that I wasn't conscious. And they told me. So my time, it could be give or take. I usually say 7 seconds, but it could be 15. It could be however long it took for them to get to their car, to my car, and knock on the window. It's how long I was out, because they told me I was out. Which,
Hey, do you know Rashid Ishmael? Do you know Rashid Roper?
never in a million years.
Okay.
Is there a reason you're asking?
Oh no, I see his wife is a nurse.
So you're just asking if I know random people?
Does he live in Buffalo?
He's not. Yeah, he does, and he's a friend of a friend. He's someone who you could easily have known. He used to live right across the street from Otis.
Oh, I may know him then. Otis, when Otis lived on East Side.
Yeah.
Like downtown Buffalo? No, I don't think he lived there when you were here.
No, this was when I had left, when I had come back to visit for the first time. So it may have been
Oh, it may have been when he was on Monroe.
maybe.
So Erica, you plot out stories?
Yeah, so I direct shows and I produce shows and stuff for the circus. So, and sometimes it's my own solo act that I'm doing for an event, or and sometimes it's a big production with many performers, and we might sit down for a few months and create the general outline of the script, but then hand it over to somebody else to direct. And then once we hand it over, it's really hard to just let the director do their thing, but you kind of have to put your faith in the hands of the director and let them do it, because there's only so many jobs one person can do. So, yeah.
Do you write recreationally?
No. I don't. I'd love to be able to relate to you in that way, but I definitely don't write recreationally. I create a lot of acts. I create visual performance, like physical comedy type of routines all the time, and almost never for fun. It's always for a purpose. But during quarantine, I started taking a physical comedy class where the only reason I was creating the acts was to be able to present them in the class the next week. So in that way, it was kind of for fun and not for an event that I had coming up.
See, for me, it's always easier to go on.
It's a little bit more freeing because you have, if you're doing it, and you probably experience this because you're writing kind of for yourself, when you have no parameters except maybe a few guidelines, to be able to create something, it's a lot more freeing versus I'm at this event, the theme of this event is this, and so I have to create an act around the theme of this event that this client has paid for, and that's what they're looking for.
It's funny that you say that, because I was literally just about to say, when I kind of cut you off, that it's always easier for me to write when I'm under someone else's, if I have to write something for someone else. I'm so critical of myself.
At least some guidelines, then it helps for sure.
Yes. But for me, it's like I'm so critical,
just
right?
Write something, that's pretty hard.
See, I for me though, because again, I'm a storyteller, right? So if I was in school and my teacher was like, you guys have an hour to write a short story, I'd knock it out of the park. If I was sitting in my basement right now, it'd take me 2 hours.
Don't you feel like your teacher wouldn't just say, at school though, your teacher wouldn't just say, write something. Your teacher would say, write a short story. This is the length. It has to have X amount of characters. It has to have, these are the parameters. They wouldn't just be like, write a story.
Right. But even if they did, even if they did just say, write a story, because I want to be the best writer, I think I'm dope like that, I would just knock it out of the park, no pressure. Whereas if I were sitting downstairs at my computer, that paragraph would be rewritten over the course of 2 hours.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Mike, you were saying, I'm sorry, man.
No, I was just gonna say we had a creative writing class that was just like that, I think senior year of high school, which was interesting because there weren't really any parameters, and it was It was a little bit weird that you had to like just come up with your own premise. It felt
Do you
like
think
But you're
that the
no
teacher was,
slouch.
yeah, but do you think that the teacher was doing that to give you an incentive to be creative, or you think that maybe the teacher was just not a good teacher?
no, it was a creative. It was
Hmm.
it was a creative class for sure. It was different.
But
It
like
was
Mike, you're no slouch as a writer.
yeah. Well, just like you said, like given your own parameters and given a certain amount of time and seeing what you can do, like in an hour to write whatever you can or write whatever comes to you. It was interesting to not have to not be boxed in by anything, right? It's almost easier to be given a task and have to write. So it was like a different skill set
I
for
think
sure.
that's it. It definitely you're tapping into a different skill set.
Sometimes, so not. I'm like I said, I don't really write stories on paper. I mean, I did when I was younger, but when I'm creating a story, it's more like maybe I have this object right here, right? And so I'm playing with this object. I'm starting to kind of create tricks with this object. And now my objective, now I've got like 5 pieces of choreography with this object. Why are those pieces of choreography happening? And how can I connect them together?
See, that's a process.
Right. And
That's
it starts
literally
with playing.
yeah, and that's one way of like looking at it, right? Like in a metaphorical sense, right? Like you're painting the picture and connecting the dots.
But is your point you have to be given something to play with in the first place, or that you can
I
just
think
make up your own object?
I think that it depends. So I think when I first started performing, mostly I was doing dance. I felt really liberated in that I didn't have any work, so I could just make stuff, and I was just making whatever I wanted and seeing if anybody wanted to see it. And then the idea of actually trying to make a profit came into play, and that's when it became more about this person has money, this is what they want, so create something around that. And I think now that I've done that for so long, trying to go back to just like create something for you for fun that is not marketable is so hard. I don't think I can do it
Mm.
because that part of my brain is like, who's going to pay for this? And it stops the creativity.
See, you know what? That's something that, and a friend of mine, Ahmad, and I have this conversation, and I think Mike and I probably had it once, but it's something that one of the things that I advise in those situations, and it's something that I'm critical of. And we had this conversation, and it stems back to the guy who created the Aliens film franchise.
Mm-hmm.
And also with George Lucas, right? Like a lot of fans say that these two people are no longer good for their own franchises. Like they don't know what's good for their own franchises because, the question comes up, right? Like if you're an artist, are you really an artist if you're not creating something that people can see and appreciate? So my thought process has always been when I write for me. If you like it, or you happen to enjoy it or want to buy it, cool. But the person that I'm trying to please and the person that I want to enjoy the story the most is myself. I don't like I once you get it in your head, like and a lot of creators find themselves under pressure. Like I got to meet this deadline. I got to write this thing that sells. And I feel like you leave something on the table. Like I feel like there is a creative something within your own creativity that you can't tap into because it's kind of like if you look at writing, if you look at movies, if you look at art, how many things are unique and original or just a new take on something that has already been done? But the
You
people who
watch like a
contribute
lot of the content that Netflix turns out, and it's pretty clear that they're not trying to make a really unique original idea. They're trying to make X amounts of action movies that have these 5 things that you
Mhm.
have to have in an action movie, and it makes a crappy movie. But Netflix pays for it, and the movie gets produced and the actors get paid. But the finished
Right.
product is
But then
garbage.
you have these geniuses who don't concern themselves with that. and they're the ones who are contributing something unique and original, because they're it's this story that no one did before. It's this painting that no one thought to paint before. It's this song that no one thought to arrange this way before, because they're actually doing it to satisfy their own creativity, and it carves out its own brand new niche, and it's considered, you know, in many cases these things are considered genius, or you know what I mean. And that's what I like. I want to contribute, like what I'm writing, right? Like the characters, like this isn't new. So then it's not, like it's not. How many people have done a vampire story before, right? So then my thought process is I got to put that out of my head. I can't, like when I started writing comic books, I stopped reading comic books. I didn't stop reading, because I think the more you read, the better you write. You understand what I'm saying? Like the more you consume, the better a writer you can be. So I didn't stop, because you need words. You need exposure to words. You need exposure to concepts. You need exposure to, you know what I mean? But I don't read the mediums that I'm writing in, because you know, you find yourself subconsciously influenced by things that you like, by writers or authors or singers or what have you that you like. You know what I mean? And it's kind of subconscious. But like, so like my pathway to writing was from flash fiction. So a lot of times I didn't even know what the story was going to be about. Right? I just start a story in the middle of a conversation piece or in the middle of an action piece, and I don't even know who the characters are. I'm just gonna boom, write this right in the middle, start right there, and just build it.
I think that's playing the long game, and if you have the privilege of playing the long game, I think in the end what you create can often be a really true work of art that is accessible and entertaining to everyone, because it's just so good. Like some of the more creative circus acts that I see, or the more creative dance pieces I see that are just so brilliant and original, appeal to everyone. But there's just such a large number of creative acts that might only appeal to other creative people. And I do think that, unfortunately, what happens when you work in an industry, more circus than dance, because dance isn't so much in the event entertainment world. I guess maybe like hip hop and kind of that style of event entertainment.
You do hip hop dance, right?
I don't do any dance anymore, but I did do hip hop when I was younger, and African was kind of the two styles of dance I really like to do. But mostly hip hop is very marketable, but contemporary dance, unless it's exceptionally entertaining, is not. People don't care that much about contemporary dance. But I'm talking more in the circus world. There are the really creative acts where you might go to a festival and you might win all kinds of medals and all kinds of awards, and everybody that's there is just in tears about the beautiful act that you created. Try to sell that to a corporate event that's just trying to like show their employees that they appreciate them by having a party for them. It's not going to sell. So it crushes the creativity, because you're like, I gotta sell some material here. You know what I mean? So then you forget how to make creative things. But I think there's a certain level of privilege you have to be able to say, I'm just going to keep making beautiful art. And I think for some people that privilege is that they are smart enough not to get a career in the arts and maybe have it as a hobby, so that they can actually like really enjoy and create things that are. I see
exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
There's like,
because when it becomes your paycheck, then there's pressure. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to eat. And I get it. Some people can't just write their own ticket. Most people can't just write their own ticket. And I'm sure that they had to make a lot of paychecks first to get into a position where they could be like, okay, you know what? You know what I mean? I'm now calling these shots. I'm going to play the long game. I'm going to listen. I do contract work. You know what I mean?
I used to consider myself an artist. I'm an artist. And now I'm like, I'm an entertainer. No, I'm not an artist. I'm an entertainer. There's a difference.
See, I always told myself before I publish a novel, like they're all going to be done. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to have 4 or 5 manuscripts. You know what I mean? I'm so against, I don't like fans. and I don't mean that in a negative way, because I love fans. Like, I'm a fanboy who reads comics and loves interaction with creators and the whole nine. What I mean is I don't like the idea that fans can step in and say, hey, this isn't what your character would do. This isn't what, you know what I mean? This isn't what should happen. Like, that to me bothers me. So I don't want to give, like, I want to write something that when it's all said and done, my vision, here's my vision, 5 manuscripts, boom, this is my vision. And then I'll go look for a publisher. So I have a question though. You said something, Erica, that kind of caught my ear. So there are circus performances where like they affect people on an emotional level that they cry.
Yeah, for sure. So, but that never makes it to you. The most artistic circus that you're ever going to see in the United States, like that's mass appeal, is Cirque du Soleil. And Cirque du Soleil says themselves, they say like, this is entertainment presented to people as art so that they can feel artsy. So what they'll do is they will go, there's a circus festival in Paris every year, contemporary circus festival, and they're going to go there and they'll watch all the acts, and they're going to pick out the acts that are really moving, and they're going to buy that act, and then they're going to put the characters in these ridiculous goofy costumes and try to figure out how to make that act have mass appeal with colors and flashing lights and just distractions. But there are a lot of circus acts where people spend 10 years creating this really thought-provoking performance that's beautiful and exceptional because the skills are really good, but that is never going to get mass distribution.
Even now with like live stream platforms?
Sometimes I really feel like some live performances only work as live performances.
Mm.
And not only that, another problem with showing your stuff online is that when someone's watching something online, they want a quick fix. They want you to do a backflip, and then they're gonna thumbs up and move on to the next video. It's rare that you get someone that's willing to sit down to watch like a 20-minute circus act on the internet.
It's interesting because I just watched on HBO Max about a month ago the lead singer from Talking Heads. He did a visual performance. It's probably about an hour and a half. Spike Lee produced it and put it on HBO Max, and it's beautiful.
Was that good? It was beautiful. I was thinking of watching it.
It was beautiful.
Well, so that reminds me of Black is King, because I was saying this when I watched it for the first time. When I was watching that film, that visual album, I was thinking, now if Beyonce in the Destiny's Child years came up to people and was like, this is what I want to do, people would be like, shut up, Beyonce, shake your booty. But what she did was establish herself as a cultural icon so that she had the freedom to create something like Black is King and get people to actually watch it.
Is that the controversial one?
Is it controversial? I don't know, but it is very artistic. And she took she was trying to be artistic. She didn't really direct it. There were like 50 directors on that film, but she was, going in a direction that she wouldn't have been able to go in when she was just Beyonce from Destiny's Child. She established herself, she planted the roots, and then she said, okay, now I want to do something really interesting.
So she was Bae. Bae did that.
Right.
Queen Bae, as they call her.
Did you see it?
I didn't. What is your opinion of it?
I found it to be very moving. I do think that Beyonce she probably did her best from her perspective of showcasing cultures without exploiting cultures, because she's trying to showcase a lot of elements of African culture and African artists, and I think she did a pretty good job. But I think maybe the controversy was that some people felt like she was just maybe exploiting those African artists and exploiting those African cultural elements for her. But people are going to say shit. You know what? People are just going to say shit. I thought it was nice. I thought it was really beautiful. And the thing I took from it is that she could not have done that without already being famous and already having a following. But it was great. Like, it was a beautiful thing that would have been entertaining had I not known who Beyonce was. In a world, I don't know how that would happen, but
I'm learning that it's really hard to define or actually see the line especially because of cancel culture, the negative aspects of cancel culture, it's really hard to see the line between what is cultural appropriation and what is just me participating in something that I enjoy and appreciate from another culture.
Right. And to me, I think I felt by viewing it that her objective, and I'm not friends with Beyonce, so I can't say for sure because we didn't have a conversation about this. She wasn't trying to exploit African culture for her own gain. I felt like she was like, I have this platform. There are these great musicians in Africa. There's these really cool things happening in Africa. I'd like to showcase some of what that is in this visual album. But I can't say without her. I can't speak on her behalf, but that's how I read it when I was watching.
Because I'm currently involved in a specific endeavor where I and this all started, this conversation kind of arose at least with me and Mike, I'd say in 2018 or so. I'd read an article, and it's interesting because I'm involved in a specific type of business endeavor where I'm sure some of the things that I'm going to present can be considered like cultural appropriation, especially because I'm going to profit off of these things, right? But my intention isn't like to appropriate culture, like that. And I think intention is certainly like the focal point here, or the key word here. Like, what are your intentions? What's your motivation? And again, I read an article some years ago, which I shared with Mike, and we talked about it. This is way back in the early days when we were still conceiving the show. And the article was several comments from African people who were criticizing the Black Panther film for using Americans in roles that Africans should play. And they use words like exploitative and cultural appropriation, which was, for me, it was a big deal because it was the first time that I even considered that, at least from someone's perspective, Black people could appropriate culture from other Black people. Even though clearly, I mean, Africa is a continent with like the most countries, the largest continent with the most countries, and obviously a diverse amount of cultures. Like, there's so many different cultures in Africa, right? Like, if an African American, I guess an African American, I guess from their perspective, can appropriate their culture.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say that African Americans appropriate African culture without understanding African culture and understanding what a big and diverse place Africa is. I wish that Nafisa was on here too, that maybe she could speak to it a little bit better as a person from Africa and having her experience when she came to the United States and how she felt about it. But I do think that you're right in that it's hard to tell where the line is for cultural appropriation, because it's what's cultural appropriation, what's cultural appreciation. That's the real question. And I feel like no two people are going to say the same thing. Just like, no two Africans are going to say the same thing about Black Panther. There are plenty of people from Africa that felt that it was a great movie, and they are grateful that there was finally an American movie that was celebrating African culture. Maybe they got some of the stuff wrong. Obviously, it's a fictionalized version, but versus like older American movies where if you're an African, you were like the savage in the movie that was like shrinking heads and, all that stuff. And then other Africans who say they didn't get our culture right. But it's just like they say African Americans are not a monolith. Africans are also not a monolith. So,
Well, also for African Americans who don't, know where their lineage comes from, I don't know. It's kind of a weird question talking about appropriation for stuff that they do, I mean,
yeah.
Because
sure, you don't know what part of Africa you're from, so how can you know what part of Africa to celebrate? So you just celebrate Africa as a place instead of like a specific country in Africa.
Right.
Oh, we were getting a tour of the mansion.
Sorry, I need an extension cord. My battery's dying.
So I don't know. Sure. I think that kind of goes both ways, but this is me being the controversial ish now, right? Like, because these are fair points, right? Like Africa, we know it's obviously somewhere in West Africa, but we can't really pinpoint where. And but on the same token, right? Like, so I always perceive myself, because I can't identify where I mean, I have the means now, but I can't identify what culture in Africa I came from. I always perceive myself as American, and I can pinpoint that. You know what I mean? And it can be, even though, you know, we're right, like, because you're right, Mike, sometimes just the very question is weird. But even though it can be as much like our relatives in Africa, well, I guess it's closer to home for you than say for me, because I'm so many generations removed from Africa, where you're just a generation, and you know what I mean? Whereas I'm all of my ancestors, you know, date back to slavery on both sides of my family. You know what I mean? Anything further than that, I'm sure Africa, but like, I'm generations removed from Africa. You know, my grandfather's father was generations removed from Africa. So, and that's on both sides. My wife, same thing. So, you know, for me, I tend to think, well, I could pick a West African culture to celebrate, and I can't hold it against someone from that West African culture to look at me and say, hey, you know, I feel some type of way about this, because, you know, you're American, and you now have, like, there is a culture that is certainly ascribed, like, African Americans certainly have a specific and unique culture. And while we're not a monolith, we certainly have a culture that is different than Africans, and those African cultures that we choose to celebrate. So I don't know, for me, it's like, it is tough. It's a weird question, but it's tough. It's like, well, what if someone who's an American descendant of slavery certainly does his DNA test and traces his roots to Senegal, right?
Yeah, but you know what? I think that it doesn't matter. I feel like, so for you, obviously, someone stole your history from you, and you can't ever trace that history. But if you were able to trace your history and say, like you said, I'm from Senegal. I'm from this tiny little village in Senegal. Such and such was my great-great-grandfather. I have the privilege of being able to trace my history. And I know that, for example, that my great-great-grandparents were from this southern region in Ireland. But if I were to say, oh, I'm Irish, and then start celebrating Irish culture like that, to me, that's cultural appropriation. And someone from Ireland might be like, you're not fucking Irish, even though I can tell you exactly where in Ireland my family came from. I don't know.
And it's interesting because Irish people from Ireland do that.
Yes, they do. And that's acceptable for them to do, because at some point a new country was formed, and we do this as Americans, like, a lot. We say, I'm this, I am that, I'm this, like, but your family's been in America for 300 years. Like, how can you even say that you're that anymore? Mm-hmm. At what point are you American? Which point do you become American instead of being whatever you were before you came here or were dragged here against your will?
I had a conversation with a friend of mine who's also Irish, and we were talking about that, and I said to her, you know, American, like, we have a culture. And she's like, well, what's the American culture? And I'm like, well, first of all, it's a culture of subcultures, right? Like, we are a melting pot of different peoples. So there's an overarching culture, but there's also subcultures within this stew, so to speak, right? Like, different people, obviously, you know, it kind of speaks to what you were saying, but also the opposite, in the sense that, like, there is an Irish culture in America that is not Irish from Ireland, right? There's an
look
Italian
at Dingus
culture.
Day. Like, Dingus Day
Right.
is not celebrated in Poland. I was like driving through maybe Belgium with a friend, and he was from Poland, and I was like, oh, Dingus Day. And he was like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Well, he didn't say that, but you know, that's, and I was like, you know, Dingus Day. And he was like, and then
it's like they don't drink Heineken in Amsterdam.
Well, right. It's just that this thing that came over from Poland became a big deal in Buffalo, but it didn't continue to be a big deal in Poland. You know, the country evolved, and our memory of the country gets stuck in what we think that country is.
I mean, you know, they don't celebrate Juneteenth in Africa.
Yeah, but why would they celebrate Juneteenth in Africa?
Well, that's my point, though. Like, we have a culture here as African Americans that is ours.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? That developed here. That, you know, they're not gonna. You know what I mean? Like, we also have a culture. That doesn't mean that I don't think we shouldn't appreciate our heritage, but we certainly have a culture here.
Yeah, you should appreciate your heritage, but you should also have permission to appreciate your heritage. Like, I think that the dismissiveness, maybe it's warranted in some respect. Like, okay, maybe you don't really understand African culture as much as you think you do. You've never been here, you know, you don't really know what Africa is. You need to blah, blah, blah. But like, at least give people permission to celebrate like where they're from. Give them that, you know.
That's interesting. Mike, what do you think about that? That's one of the most interesting statements I've heard on the subject, that you should have permission to celebrate it. That is really interesting.
I mean, I think Black people should always have permission to celebrate and to check out where we're from. And I never agree with any of these conversations that, you know, everything is 50-50 and everything is equal, and that whatever, you know, white people can't do, we can't do either. I never subscribe to any of that. So yeah, I think Black people should certainly always be given more agency on this stuff, because of our background and because of you know, where we come from and how we got here. So certainly.
What I'm talking about as it pertains to like Africans versus African Americans. Like,
Yeah,
what about the African perspective?
What about it?
Well, what if they perceive it as cultural appropriation?
I mean, that's, you know, their opinion. They could certainly do so. We should have that conversation. For sure.
I think that, I mean, if your family had chosen to come here and said, I want to come to America, I want to be a part of that, then maybe I could see it. But like for you, Ish, you know, having descended from slaves, saying that you can't celebrate African culture when you never, well, not you specifically, but maybe whatever ancestor came here or was brought here against their will, when they left Africa, they didn't willingly leave Africa to become an American. So they should be able to celebrate the place that they were taken from.
I don't disagree, but and for me, I'm always inquisitive. So I'm always kind of, you know, in the middle. You know, Mike used 50-50, but I'm kind of in the middle until I can kind of find my way to one side or another on a particular subject. So for me, it's like, well, I don't disagree with you. I wonder if, even if, you know, like against my will, my family were brought here, you know, at some point, you know, generation 2, generation 3, I'm no longer on any level African.
Right. I don't consider myself Irish. I find it really, like, my parents really genuinely are like, we're Irish. This is a really important part of our history and our culture. And I'm like, I'm not Irish, man. I don't know anything about Ireland. Like, like, that's not who I am. I don't consider myself that.
You know, when do we become America? And it's hard because of, you know, certain people's plights in this country. I don't think that we should just, you know, wake up tomorrow and be like, okay, uniculture, we're all Americans.
Yeah, I was going to say, when we get treated how we, you know, should be treated, perhaps
right.
Then.
When
Until
you're
then,
in a country,
Pan-Africanism to me is important.
I think it's
because
important
I feel like we have to connect around the world and build strength off of each other and like connect with each other wherever we're going through it in the world.
I also think that sometimes you're in a place that maybe doesn't treat you like your home either. So as an African American, you don't necessarily have the welcome mat thrown out for you everywhere you go in the United States.
Yeah.
So it's totally natural to want to fantasize about a place that maybe would treat you better because you belong there. Of course, the reality of that is a little more complicated.
Right. I was going to say that.
But for you to just have that fantasy and for someone to tell you you're not allowed to have that fantasy, I think they're taking something away. And maybe because they're not American but are African, they don't understand on a deeper level what they're taking away by saying you can't have that fantasy.
Yeah, these are interesting conversations that I think are good to have. I'm not so sure. And I don't know. I look at things a little differently. I feel like at some point, and again, not tomorrow, like I consider myself to be American. You know, I consider myself as I come from a race of people that did as much to build America today, even though we don't necessarily reap the benefits, as any other culture. You know what I mean? Like, we did as much, if not more, as any other culture to put America in the position that it is today, whether we reap the benefits or not. You know what I mean? So for me, it's like, I understand Mike's perspective on connecting with, the thing is, like, Africa is the largest continent with the most countries. Like, these countries just don't, all these different cultures just don't connect with each other either.
I mean, you look at Eritrea and Ethiopia, like they do not like each other, and they're right next to each other. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
But it doesn't matter. It's not about what's really, like, for a lot of people who are African American, it's not about what's really happening in Africa or whether or not Africa would be a warm, welcome place for them. It's about feeling comfort. Like, maybe the fantasy of me going home to my family and spending time with them is more comforting than the actual time I would spend with my family, perhaps, for a lot of people. But to have that memory of that nice, warm place, or that fantasy of that nice, warm place where you're welcome and embraced, that's something that I don't think should be taken away from people.
Well, Ghana was certainly very welcoming, I could say for sure, and is an experience for any Black person that goes. It's a very welcoming experience, and it's an incredible experience.
I've heard nothing but good things about Ghana.
Yeah, to be embraced that way and to be welcomed, to literally be welcomed home by people, like, in their language and in their phrase, like, I think it's Akwaba, I think is the phrase, welcome home, is what folks say to you when you go there. It's certainly incredible.
Now, I wonder if your perspective is influenced by how close you are in generations to Ghana. Like, for me, I don't know that, like, my experiences, was in Senegal or what have you. I don't know that, and I enjoyed it, but I don't know that I had that. And I can't speak for everyone, because I talk to Black people who've been to Africa, who share your sentiments, that are generations removed from, their African ancestors, who certainly share your sentiments. I listen to YouTube videos of people who speak, Brother Jabari or what have you. But for me,
as were my cousins on my mom's side, who are hundreds of, however many generations removed. It's my father's side that the Ghanaians are on, that I'm only one generation removed from, but everyone else on the other side has been in America for, ever since the diaspora, and they got to experience the same thing I did.
See, for me, it wasn't the same. It was like, it was cool. It's fine. I love it. You know what I mean? Like, it, but I also, like, my family, for as far as I can recall, is like here.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So are my cousins, and they went with us.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you my experience. For me,
have you been to Africa?
Senegal, when I was in Germany.
And that's where is that where your folks are? Is that where your lineage comes from?
No, I don't know where my lineage in Africa comes from.
Okay.
But I saw the slave ports, that was stark for me, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Wrote my name in the book, you know what I mean? But but again, for me, my personal experience, which is what I'm talking about for me,
Mhm.
you know, by comparison is like, well, my family is here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So for me, as far back as I can trace, my family is here. And
Mhm.
it's like, you know, I don't have those same feelings of I don't have a problem. Like they welcome you. They want you to sign your name in the book, the whole nine. Like a
Right.
black person goes to the ports in Senegal, they want you. Like they want you to come.
Mhm.
They want you to, you know, all of that. But it feels good, but it's like, you know, I'm ready to go home.
But like you
We're
say,
not
Africa's a big
culturally the
place.
same. Yeah.
Senegal, no two countries in Africa are culturally the same. So maybe Senegal was just not the right place for you to visit.
I wanted to go to Egypt, but we weren't allowed.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean you weren't allowed?
It wasn't advised at the time when I was in Germany for Americans or even foreigners to go to Egypt at the time. This was in the 90s because of terrorism towards tourists. It
Okay.
was like active and open at that time. There were things going on. 2 embassies got bombed almost simultaneously in two different areas in Africa, and it was just at the time it wasn't advised to go to Egypt. It certainly wasn't going to be sanctioned if we went. So
you couldn't say you can't pinpoint a country in Africa where your roots are from, but
I'm certain it's West Africa, obviously, but
yeah, West Africa most likely, but like West Africa is not one country either. So,
yeah.
but for me, like I know my family's from Africa. I mean, my family's from Africa like thousands of years ago, but my family is from Ireland. But I've been
I
all
could
over
tell. I could see the cultural identifiers.
all of us. But I didn't mean to say Africa though. I've been all over Europe. I've never been to Ireland. I never went to a European country and was like, this is me, I'm home. But that's like, you went to a part of Africa that didn't feel like home to you. What I'm saying is maybe if you were in a different part of Africa, maybe it's just that you haven't found the right fit for yourself. Maybe if I were to go to Ireland, I'd be like, these people are like me. Probably not, because again, like you said, my family is pretty far removed from that country. But I didn't feel at home in France. I didn't feel at home in
France is
Germany.
dope too. Germany is my favorite country in Europe.
Germany's pretty sweet, but you know, I've never been to the place where my family's from. Maybe if I did go there, I would feel a stronger connection. Unlikely, but maybe.
France is dope, but they really are. When they say French people are a-holes, like it's no joke. They're not joking.
Appreciate a person that's honest. Like I like that about French people. I like a person that doesn't sugarcoat what they're going to say to you. They just
Oh
say
yeah,
it.
no, it's cool, but it's really the truth though. Like it's like they love to wear that name that it's an honor to them to be known to the world as, you know, a-holes.
Yeah, but you know, going back on your point that there are some people in Africa that don't like the idea of Americans celebrating their African heritage. I think that you shouldn't get too focused on the feelings of a handful of people, because no, people don't always feel the same about something. So I wouldn't.
I agree.
I'm just looking at something that says top 10 worst rated vegetarian dishes in the world. I think I might send this to you just so you can watch.
Are you gonna try them all?
I don't know that I need to do that.
I think you should try each one on air.
No, I think
and go down
should.
This top 10 list.
I think as the budding vegan, you should.
Are you a budding vegan?
To experiment on yourself, I think I should watch how you react, and we can have
Erica,
fun. Why would you scare him off like that?
Erica, I'm one of those plants that takes a long time to grow.
Well, because first
right,
of all,
but if you put poison on the plant doesn't grow.
Well, first of all, he suggested it. I'm not going to do that because that's.
I didn't suggest a top 10 list of worst vegan foods. I did not suggest that. Did you hear me suggest that, Erica?
You suggested I try it. So let's be real. You suggested
you brought it up.
Some of the stuff on the list.
Yeah, I did. I did bring it up. and I said I would show it to you so that I could warn you what to stay away from. And then you suggested that I should try it, which I find dumb because I'm not.
Well, I
out
think
here
you should. I
trying
think
to
you
find.
maybe it's not the worst list. Maybe you might disagree, and as you know,
Yeah, but I find that dumb because I'm not out here trying to like find out, right?
but I
Like,
think it would
What's
be
on the
entertaining is the
list?
reason why I mentioned it.
Just tell us
yeah,
what's on
no,
the
I think it
list.
would be much more entertaining for you to do it, not for me.
Maybe we both do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just okay. I'd be more willing if we both did it. I'm just not willing to be like,
I'm just looking for the entertainment purposes. Like let's
No,
evaluate.
I know you are. I'm just nobody's. I'm nobody's little bellboy.
It'd be a good show. It'd be a good
Okay,
show
can you
if you
just
tried
say
the
like
top
what's
10.
what's
Okay,
number
so-
one?
So this first one, okay, it's just a picture. So the first one that they name is Ratatouille.
I love that dish.
Erica, you got to come on air and try the top 10. You got to try the top 10.
The second one is Caesar salad.
What?
That's
Caesar
not
salad is
vegan.
pretty good. I
It
don't
has
like the
anchovies
sauce.
in it.
Okay, so someone wasn't. So both. So Ish pulled you into his world, and you didn't pay attention when I mentioned what I mentioned. I said top 10 worst rated vegetarian dishes.
But anchovies are not vegetarian. Doesn't
That's
Caesar
why
salad
it's
have
one of the
anchovy
worst
dressing?
rated.
Oh, okay, let's look at that. What happened with that one? Yeah, I guess this one. No, yeah. Well, okay, so that's interesting. So this one doesn't have anchovies, but it does say Worcester sauce, which usually does have. Doesn't Worcester sauce usually have anchovies in it?
I thought so. Is it a
Worcestershire
recipe
sauce?
though?
It tells you what the main ingredients are in it.
Ah,
What's number 3?
Number 3. Hexanos da Horta, a Portuguese
the dish or the ingredient?
No, a Portuguese dish consisting of green beans that are dusted in flour, then fried. Speaking of going to different countries,
Sounds
the
pretty
name
good.
means fish from the garden because it resembles
It
small
doesn't
fried
sound
fish.
bad.
I'd eat it. Sounds
Yeah,
like fish sticks.
Yeah, you probably just got to season it. Cauliflower cheese.
Yeah, no.
At all? Like, here's my question about this list. Are they giving you an actual recipe to prepare it? Because like I could probably make all of these dishes taste good with the right seasoning.
That's what I'm
She's
saying.
one
I
of
don't
those,
know.
Mike. She's one of those.
Well, no, I mean that's totally makes sense. I mean,
She's
we're
one
all
of those
one
people.
Of these. Yeah, we're
That
all
thinks
one
you
of
can
these
make
people.
food taste good.
Listen,
right?
I complain about this on Facebook. I do these random food commentaries, and one of them is like how you know you don't like something, and someone who can cook comes along and says, "Yeah, that's because you haven't had it the way I made it." And I'm like, "Oh, you can make it taste like a steak? Like,
Yeah,
you can make a green pepper taste like
Yeah,
like,
I'm going to
like fried chicken."
Yeah, I'm gonna fight back against that. I mean, a lot of these are dishes that a lot of people like, and it's really weird. Like, how would cauliflower cheese be bad to someone who eats cheese? Like, I don't understand how this could be so bad. I mean, it's made from flour, milk, butter, nutmeg, and mature cheeses such as cheddar. How could that be so bad? Unless you don't
feel
season
like
your food.
this person had a friend who cooked all these dishes for them, and their friend just happened to be really bad at making food.
Yeah, their friend doesn't use seasonings. That's exactly what I'm thinking.
What else are we talking about here?
Okay,
Nutmeg is a seasoning.
What's that?
Nutmeg is a seasoning.
No, I'm saying whoever made this dish does not season their fucking food. Because cauliflower and cheese, like, give me a break. That shit should be good. That's what I'm
He's
saying.
like, what do you mean cauliflower cheese isn't good? What's going on here?
You can make that good for sure.
This person this should be like top 10 dishes you have to be an asshole not to be able to make taste good.
All right,
that's
what
it
else?
should
What
be.
else do we have on this list that you're not going to try but are
This one
criticizing?
is called Imam by Yildi. It's a Turkish dish consisting of eggplants cut in a way that they look like long canoes, filled with a
I don't
combination
like squash.
of. It's not squash.
Well, eggplant and
And
squash is the same to me.
Okay, I've never
Same
heard that,
texture.
but
They got the
this
same texture.
this should be really good. Onions, red peppers, garlic, and tomato. I don't know if you can. I mean, those are like the best. Those are like really good.
That all
Some
sounds good to
onions and
me.
and peppers and eggplants taste nasty.
You don't like
I mean,
onions?
it's
I
flavored
don't like
with
onions
oregano,
or peppers.
cumin, paprika, and lemon juice.
That sounds good. A little
Sauteed
salt.
in generous amounts of olive oil. I mean, this is like an African dish that my father
Sounds
makes
real
like
good.
very well, and it's delicious. I mean, not specifically like the canoe shaped eggplant, but yeah, I don't know. I think this is like I think we're
Sounds like a
being
horrible list to me. I think they're right on point.
no. I think we're being trolled. I think we're being trolled. into, like,
Onions,
reading
red
these
peppers,
dishes.
and eggplant.
Wait,
Well,
wait,
yeah,
wait. If you don't
you
like
just don't
onions,
like
what
this
are you
stuff.
even eating? Like, how do you even eat a meal without an onion in it?
Huh? There's plenty
Yeah,
of meals you can eat without an onion in it.
You
What?
just don't like this stuff. But
I don't like
people who-
onions and red peppers and eggplants. I really don't. I like when I posted
Yeah, but
my
I'm
post
saying
about
these
people
are things
making
that
food taste
you
good. I was
these
thinking
are
about
things that
peppers.
these are things that you specifically don't like. But for
Yeah,
people
yeah.
who do, for most people who like them, these would not be bad dishes at all. This is like
Oh
someone
my
took
god! What are we
their.
doing here? I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone.
You're not in the Twilight Zone ish.
Mike, why
Someone
don't you
took
try the list? No, I'm not going to try the list. And now you're going to argue me down about why these things are good.
No, I'm not arguing you down about why they're good. I'm saying if you don't like these specific ingredients, of course you're not going to like the dish. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying for most people who don't have a problem with onions or eggplants, these would be delicious dishes.
So are
Is
you
that
saying
is
that
that
I
crazy?
shouldn't? No. So, but are you saying that I'm not able to say that I don't like the dish because I don't like those things in them?
Well,
Well,
I'm
the
saying, of
list
course you
is
don't.
saying the list is saying these are bad foods for everybody. Like nobody's gonna like it. It's bad. But
Thank you.
most of what he's saying is most people like those ingredients. You don't
Thank
like
you.
onions. That's not really a normal thing not to like. Most people
Exactly.
like
Thank
onions.
you. Thank you.
Yeah, but I can still
gonna be
make
like-
the comment.
No, you
You can
can.
say it.
I'm just saying this list. What I'm really trying to say is this
I know what
list
you're saying, Mike. I'm being
doesn't
ish.
hold. This list doesn't hold weight. Is what I'm saying.
What else we got?
Ish, did you write this list? That's what I'm really trying to ask.
I
Are you
might
the writer?
have. I might
Are you the
have with
writer?
the cauliflower cheese, and I might have.
Yeah, because you seem to overwhelmingly agree with this weird list.
Yeah. What else we working with?
Wait a minute.
No, I
written
didn't.
by
I didn't agree with
Ishmael
number one and number
Maven.
two. I didn't
Written
agree
by
with number one and number two.
Ishmael Mavens.
I didn't agree with number one and number two. I don't like the sauce on Caesar salad, but I like Caesar salad. I just don't like that sauce.
Okay. Let's see what else they got here. Next, they're probably going to say macaroni and cheese.
Ain't the worst thing
Israeli
I had.
salad.
Is that like couscous?
No, Israeli salad is kind of like, it's almost like the Israeli version of pico de gallo. Right? It's
Okay, what's
tomato,
wrong with that?
onions, cucumbers, peppers, parsley, lemon juice, olive oil, bell peppers.
This is a troll. This is definitely a troll.
Yeah, I put that
Oh,
on
but
the list.
maybe the list is the worst foods if you're hungry and you're vegetarian because someone's
yeah,
just
this is
serving you
weird.
sides.
No, honestly, I feel like this.
She said, "What do you eat?"
Wait, this is weird. This is. I don't get it. Top 10 worst rated vegetarian dishes in the world. Yeah, see, I feel like we're being trolled. This is not.
Are they like at specific restaurants? I could see like this
No.
restaurant that has the worst ratatouille in the world.
No, because
Oh yeah, I never had ratatouille.
Well, here's the thing that's really annoying is once you read under it, it doesn't say anything about these being bad dishes at all. It's just giving you a history of like the dish under the province. I
Well,
feel
what
like
else is on the list?
this was literally a bait. This was literally like clickbait.
Is baked potato on the list? If baked potato's on the list, we know it's a bad list.
No, I'm telling you, this is weird. There's like nothing under any of these headings that continues with the theme of these being bad dishes. This was literally clickbait just to get us to look at these recipes. Because then it
Well,
says,
I'm still curious to know what else is on the list.
Okay, ate it, rate it, want to try, favorite. And it's telling you, yeah, probably the best known national dish of Israel, blah, blah, blah. Nothing about it being bad. And then
It's
it
the
says,
best known national dish of Israel.
yeah,
Wow, they trolled you.
no, yeah, this is heavy trolling. And then it says where to eat the best. And then it's naming different restaurants. This is just like a clever way of advertising. This is
So what else is on the list?
we got trolled. Oh man, they're going crazy with the masks. Have you seen winter versions of masks? They have them like connected to like winter caps and stuff.
But what else is on
That
the
sounds
list?
convenient.
I proposed that concept to Dwayne.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I should send you what this looks like. I got one that's
That's
kind
fine
of
for
like the
taking a
Elmer
walk
Fudd.
outside, but what if you have to go in?
I got like the Elmer Fudd hat with the flaps that you can either tie up at the top or let hang down, and I got a mask that like comes with it.
That's on the list?
No. Yeah, I mean, I could keep reading through this list, but this list has been corrupted. This list.
Yeah, but we almost got to 10. I'm curious.
Yeah, but now I'm getting hungry and I want to know what else I can eat.
Dokla, vegetarian snack consisting of fermented chickpea batter and rice. Spices such as chili and ginger are added to the batter in order to improve the flavor of the dish. When baked, dokla is often garnished with coriander, coconut, or chopped chilies, typically accompanied by besan chutney.
That sounds
that.
good.
Many
I like
variations, such as semolina, rice powder, or cheese dokla, fluffy, low in calories, packed with protein. Unsurprising that dokla remains a staple food of Gujarat.
I wonder, obviously this is heavy trolling, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they're saying like people don't know about these vegetarian dishes unless they're like part of the culture that they come from. Maybe they just misworded. And they're not saying that they're bad tasting. They're saying that they're not widely known.
No,
So
I'd be ordering the dokla.
No, it says worse. We were heavily trolled.
I'd be ordering the dokla.
We were heavily trolled. And it's my bad that I didn't figure that out and point it out sooner, because it was evident very quickly by the dishes that they showed. Arroz con huevo. I think everyone knows what that means, right?
What's in it?
Well, do you know what it means by the words? Arroz
I don't
con huevo?
know.
Rice and eggs. Yeah, rice and eggs.
Oh, I don't like eggs.
Okay, we'll skip
No,
that one.
I'm not an
because
egg person, but I love rice.
Are you one of those people that can eat plain white rice?
Yep. I just ate some jasmine rice earlier tonight.
That's weird.
Unseasoned. I love rice. Love rice.
That's weird. That's weird. Can you do that, Erica? Thank you.
But I taste the sugar in it.
Wait, can you eat plain rice?
With salt on it.
You can't just eat it plain?
I mean, I can if I have to, but I'd rather put some salt on it.
Oh, it's so good plain.
Yeah, I don't understand how. Yeah, you've got some interesting. You spent some time. I feel like this might have been from your time in the trenches. When you
I taste the sugar in it though.
Yeah, I feel like that's survival technique. I feel like you were in the trenches and like you didn't know when your next meal was coming. And
I've been there, but white rice wasn't in part of that equation. I wish that would have been a luxury. But white rice is one of my favorite meals. I love white rice.
Yeah, that's weird. I'm not gonna lie. And I was gonna say take this with a grain of salt, but that's usually some white people shit.
White rice?
Yes. Like, sorry.
Okay, but like,
I've never
what
met.
white people?
Well, no, of course, it's not all white people. It's
Yeah,
usually.
but like, I haven't met any at all.
Well, that's good. You
I
don't.
mean, like
I wouldn't
African
recommend
people
it.
eat it, Asian people eat it. Like, what are we doing here?
No,
Uh,
I'll honor the white
not-
people
you-
shit
you're
thing
not
if you
gonna-
can justify it.
You're not going to show me one African that eats plain white fucking rice. Sorry, you're just
But I
not.
don't know
they
any
did in
white people that
Senegal.
do it either.
Well,
Chinese, Asian
that's
people do
probably
it.
why.
No, they don't. They dip it in shit at least.
Exactly.
No, but they
Thank you, Eric.
also
Thank
they
you,
also
Erica.
will
Thank
also
you,
have
Erica.
bowls. If you go to
Thank you.
Korean restaurants, they'll also give you bowls of plain white rice.
Right, but you mix it with everything else.
Yes,
Well, you
exactly.
don't necessarily have to. There are people who don't necessarily mix it with everything else. I eat it plain. I don't prefer. It's not like I'm gonna be like, yo, like my daughter and I just had a bowl of plain white rice yesterday. While we were waiting for the curry chicken to be finished, we took some rice out of the steamer and we ate a bowl
That's weird.
of jasmine rice. Actually,
That's very.
Did you
weird.
put some salt on that?
Exact? At least
no.
put some
Why
salt
would I
on
put salt on rice?
Because it tastes good with salt.
because it
on
tastes like. Wait a minute. Here's a guy that
Rice is
doesn't even
sweet.
drink water. Here's a guy that doesn't even drink water because it tastes like nothing, and he's
Yeah,
eating
but rice doesn't taste like nothing. You can't taste the sugar when you eat the rice.
I wouldn't know because I don't eat just rice. I just would
Oh.
not do it. I mean, I don't have any business
love
just
rice.
eating plain rice. That's
I love
just,
rice. I love the texture. I love the way it tastes. I love rice. I gotta curve it because I don't want to get diabetes from it. But I gotta curve.
Yeah.
I eat a lot of rice.
No, I've had being the son of Africans. I've definitely had way too much rice in my life. Haven't eaten all the Chinese food I've had way too much rice in my life. But certainly, I can't just sit there and eat unseasoned, unsauced, unsalted white rice.
I definitely think
only
salt
people-
is a way to ruin rice. If you're just gonna put salt in it, I think it's just.
I mean, I definitely think eating plain rice is a way to just throw your rice and money away. I mean, it's crazy. I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. I mean, at least with like bread, like if you eat like good, like some kind of multi-grain or like bread with like flax or like, good for you type of bread, it's got some interesting textures and nutty flavors. And even then I wouldn't just sit there and eat a lot of it, but at least that could have a taste to it. But just plain white rice,
I could
do it.
just sit there and eat Italian bread.
Well, yeah, again, at least
Absolutely, I could just take
that's got
Italian
some
bread
more-
and just be munching on it.
at least that's got some more going to it. But just to sit there and eat rice is very weird, very strange. But yeah, usually white folks that I've known. Maybe sometimes
stop
in
it.
like college.
I need to know specific white folks that are eating
Like, stop it. Do they
unseasoned
put-
white rice for fun.
Do they put raisins in it?
Ish,
It's
let
like
me
one of
tell
white
you.
people's favorite seasonings,
Ish.
right? Raisins.
if you were to put raisins in it, you would be upping the value by a lot. Like you have no.
But that's a white
business-
people thing. Like
Yeah, but
white people
but
have like
Ish,
sun-dried raisins as like their
Ish.
top seasoning.
Ish, you're all the way at the bottom right now. Like you have no business clowning people for putting raisins in their rice because you're
So
all the way
I
at
can
the
tell you a
bottom.
story, Mike.
You're
I was
eating
working at
unseasoned
ECMC
rice.
and we had a drug lunch and they brought us like tuna sandwiches, right? And these were like tuna sandwiches with like, the gourmet toothpicks in them. So I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, I'll take a tuna sandwich. Man, I bit into that tuna sandwich, dude. The world ended for my mouth.
There's raisins.
Like
in
this
it?
was some white, no, there were grapes in this joint, dude.
Oh,
But
Like
you
this
know
was
what?
like some
Here's
white
the
people tuna
thing.
salad, man. I'm like, wait a minute, what is happening to my life? Like,
Because
I
it
didn't
increases
even
the
know
fiber?
about this
Is that
grape
because of the
thing.
fiber? Is that why? I think that's why.
I think
yo,
it's
Erica,
think
tell
white
us about
people
the
are-
grapes.
I think
Okay,
white
I
people
don't
are
know
doing
about the
this.
grapes.
Do white people are doing this because they're increasing their fiber? Ish. That's what I'm starting to realize as I'm getting into fiber.
Grapes?
I
Wait,
think.
no. Because, okay, I know not all white people is a whatever. I'm not trying to say not all white people, but what I am trying to say is I did not know about the grape thing. until I went to Feel Right Market and I got a vegan tuna sandwich and there were grapes in it. Vegan tuna.
Yo,
From Feel
I know
Right.
you was feeling some type of way, right? Like, why are there grapes?
I was. I was
Like,
like, what? Why would you put grapes in this? But more importantly, why would you eat plain white rice?
Wait, was there
no,
vegan names
grapes
in
in
this
the tuna.
sandwich?
I mean,
Was there vegan?
probably, yeah. It's probably veganese, yeah.
Okay, I was just trying to figure out reasons why you put grapes in
I
it.
don't know. I'm sure there's like an origin story to why some people put grapes in tuna
There's
salad. But
gotta be.
again, no one in my family puts grapes in their tuna salad. That's not a thing in my household.
Yo, I mean,
It's a
they be having onions and grapes, and I'm like, yo, who did this? Like,
Well,
it's like,
onions makes
and
sense.
grapes,
Yeah, grapes, I don't know what happened.
and they're not like little cut up crushed grapes. They
Right.
like slice the grape. You know what I mean?
Wait, they're green. They're green. We're talking green grapes, right?
purple.
They're just grapes.
Purple
Like,
grapes.
I don't.
Well, the
Wow.
one I
Grapes,
had
dude.
at Feel Right was purple grapes.
Yeah, I had
And
purple grapes
I'm
too.
gonna be honest. I enjoyed it. I was like, not bad. Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, I wasn't
get
feeling
into
it great.
this.
It was on wheat. It was on wheat bread.
I don't know what kind of bread the one I had was.
Well, you don't eat wheat, so it couldn't have been
Right.
wheat.
This was back when I lived in Buffalo. So that would have been before I was diagnosed with celiac disease. So I was eating whatever bread was on the sandwich.
You know, I wanted to reference Erica when Dwayne. Well, you don't. Ish, you don't really check your messages that much, but Dwayne and I have been chatting
I
in
saw
Messenger. Oh, okay.
some energy stuff.
Well, beyond that, we got into vegan stuff. But you know, Dwayne has a citric issue. He can't eat like vitamin C. Basically, we were talking about being a vegan, and I was like, I'm gonna look into how that affects you or whatever, because I'm just curious. Because you know, Erica reminds me of a person who, despite her having celiac disease, she's still a hardcore vegan. And I know for a lot
But
of
it's not
people,
easy.
no, of course, no. It's definitely, I know it's totally not easy, and I know a lot of people probably would have used that as a reason to leave their veganism. But I was just
Now,
curious.
how does one equate to the other? I don't know anything about celiac disease or why
It's
veganism is difficult for it.
well, it's not necessarily, it's two difficult diets combined because celiac disease, like I can eat dairy and I'll have a mild omega because I'm lactose intolerant, but I won't get super sick. So like if I accidentally eat something that's not vegan, like nothing bad will happen to me. If I accidentally eat something that contains gluten, like I will get very ill in that it will last weeks upon weeks. So it's like two very strict diets happening simultaneously. So it's like, that's what makes it difficult. Usually if you're going to be on some sort of strict diet, it's one or the other.
So you have to be gluten free.
I don't have a choice in it. No.
We're talking about
thing,
wheat gluten only, right? Corn gluten, rice gluten are okay.
Yeah. It's just gluten that comes from wheat, oats, barley, and rye.
Okay. So,
So
I hope that's somebody.
that covers a lot of foods.
So that makes it difficult to be a vegan?
It does, because for example, like all of the really good gluten-free breads, the ones that actually have aren't rock hard, have eggs in them. So a lot of vegan restaurants, maybe you could go in and get a sandwich, or maybe if you're at a restaurant, they have one vegan entree, but it's like a pasta dish. And I can't eat pasta. So
I'm not gonna have to watch out for that. So if I'm trying to eat a vegan sandwich, but I say gluten-free bread, it might have eggs in it.
Often, yeah.
Okay.
Because the eggs are the thing that give it like a little bit more pliability. Because gluten-free bread is pretty hard and rigid usually. But yeah, so it's just like a lot of restaurants might have a vegan dish or two vegan dishes, but it's not a gluten-free dish. Whereas if I was just vegan, it'd be fine.
Is your husband vegan also?
He's vegetarian. And he's miming to me because he just stabbed himself under the fingernail. and he's trying to show
Sure.
me. He's reenacting it right now.
So there's a difference between vegetarian and veganism.
Yeah, he eats dairy. He doesn't eat eggs because his parents don't eat eggs, so he doesn't eat eggs.
We've
But-
talked about this ish before. Remember when you accused me of shitting on other vegans, and I was saying no, I was talking about vegetarians, not vegans.
No,
You should, because it was a whole thing, and we've got
I
tapes.
don't.
We've
I
got
don't.
tapes of
Well,
it.
I'm not refuting that. What I'm saying is I don't remember.
Okay, well, I'll help you remember. You were mentioning a friend of yours that was vegetarian, but you said she was like, it was something weird, like she was a part-time vegetarian or something, and I said that doesn't equate, like you're either
Yeah, I definitely
a
don't remember this.
vegetarian or you're not.
I don't think I know anyone who's a part-time vegetarian. But anyway, go on.
I don't know. That was it. I think Erica, you might have been there. You were there one of the times. It was one of the first times you were on when he was bringing it up. He was saying, and
I'll
Mike,
agree for that. I don't remember this at all, but I won't deny it. So you can
no,
go on.
it's fine. But you know, you were saying, and Mike hates, vegetarians, or Mike hates vegans, and I was like, what? What are you talking about?
No, I thought I
And
said
you're-
you hated vegetarians or something.
Well, no, I think you had confused vegans with vegetarians. But anyways, no, I was just saying there's no such thing as a part-time vegetarian. But the main difference is just all of the animal products. So it's basically like, think of it like a vegetarian on steroids, like no cheese, no milk, no eggs, no dairy, nothing, no like animal byproducts.
no gelatin.
Yeah, that's what makes a vegan. There's like no animal byproducts.
Mm.
Which is really why the whole thing about calling diets vegan can be a little bit confusing, because really vegan's a lifestyle, right? So it's like, it's a bit of a misnomer to call a diet a vegan, because a vegan does not, buy like leather or like soap that's made from animals or any of that stuff. Whereas someone who eats plant-based just doesn't eat anything with any animal byproducts. But the nomenclature is already out there, and we probably don't want to further confuse people. So I think it just makes sense to say vegan or whatever. But that's another story.
Yeah. But
Like,
I do know I personally don't recommend, like, I think that people should do their best, but I personally don't recommend being vegan and gluten-free. I feel like it's such a challenge that it consumes a lot of my energy and consumes a lot of my life. It was more that I was vegan before I had to go gluten-free, and the thought of even trying to stop being vegan after it's been, I went vegan when I was in like middle school. So I don't even like seafood or see meat as food anymore.
Right.
So to try to change that at this late in my life, it felt like it would have been impossible. But
Now, can I ask? I'm sorry, go on.
I didn't
you were in
even
your
know what that sentence was going to be.
You were in your mid-20s, right? When you
early 20s.
Early 20s.
Well, I guess it was early to mid.
23-ish.
So what contributed for you? And I know it's a personal journey for everyone. What was it that made you choose to become vegan in middle school?
I grew up in Medina, which is, you're from Buffalo, so maybe you know the area. There's a lot of like farms in the area. So I saw a lot of farm animals and couldn't really picture myself eating them. And then I had a friend, and I had wanted to be vegetarian. My mom wasn't like not on board with it. And I had a friend whose mom was into PETA. So she always had all this like PETA literature at her house. And I kind of was starting to get into it and starting to learn different ways that I could kind of follow my ideals of not wanting to eat things that I thought were cute. And then when I was like 12 or something, I got like a job, like a paper route, so that I could pay for my own food, because my parents were not going to support the vegan thing.
So you started paying for your own food at 12?
Well, not like everything. I mean, they'd make
That's pretty
dinner
hardcore.
and there would be sides, and I would eat the sides and not the entree. But I would make enough money that I could like supplement my parents were not gonna, like I said, they're not gonna support the vegan thing. So I had to kind of go out on my own
And you kind of
a
learned to
little
cook
bit.
kind of from a younger
Yeah,
age at that
kind of
point.
learn to
That
make
is
peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah,
that
that's
is pretty
hardcore.
hardcore.
Yeah, that's hardcore. I want to interject here that
I'm waiting for the Lifetime movie on that.
a Lifetime movie. Oh man. So I
Go
want
ahead,
to interject that Buffalo might have a reputation for having some of the more hardcore vegans. Have you heard of that before, Erica?
Buffalo and Philly.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Buffalo's definitely like the scene that I was a part of, kind of that like underground punk, underground vegan scene that was pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
Pretty strict. But a lot of the people I knew back then that were hardcore vegans aren't vegans anymore, probably because they were too hardcore and they pushed
Burnt
themselves
out.
out of it. Yeah, they burned
Are you
out.
are you straight edge as well?
Well, not by definition. I mean, yes. Yeah, I guess I am, but like, I don't really use the term.
You don't use the
Oh.
markers, right?
Yeah.
No, it's just the best way. It was an easy way for me to sum it all up into one,
No, that's a
say
good
Yeah, I
question
mean-
though, especially for Buffalo. That's a good question.
Right, but I don't think it had nothing to do with the straight edge vegan culture in Buffalo, which I didn't. Most of the vegans I've spent time with also were heavy drinkers and like to party. I wasn't really part of a straight edge vegan scene when I was in Buffalo. It just my personal choice was like I didn't want to partake. I wasn't like hanging out with other straight edge people and rocking out to Minor Threat or anything. Or Earth Crisis.
Are you straight edge, Mike?
See, this is where we get into the
Oh man, here we go. Here
Ish,
we go.
you know
Here
that-
we go.
Ish, you know that I'm not.
Go.
You know that I'm not. So I'm just gonna leave that there. You know that I'm not straight edge.
Well, I don't know because, and now you're gonna criticize me, and I'm on the spotlight, and here we go again. Poor me. Woe is me. But there are some people who don't consider marijuana a drug.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I don't even really smoke anymore. But you know that I drink. I mean,
I don't know that you drink. So if you're saying that I know that you drink, I don't know that.
Okay. Well, all right. Well, I'll put it this way.
I know you used to drink.
Yeah. I mean, well, I'll put it this way. I mean, I've barely been imbibing at all, but it's not by rule. It's just the way it is, It's not like the day that I get my vaccine and I can hang out with people again. Like I probably like the day that bars reopen and that the vaccine is in full effect and shit is back to normal.
Okay, I
I
stand
will.
corrected because I do know that you like to go to the bar. I don't know that you. So I didn't even that didn't even occur to me. I remember now in conversation. You know what I mean? It didn't even occur to me.
It's been a while. It's been a while. But yeah, the day that shit is back to normal, I will be at the bar. I will do some karaoke, like, down the streets. I will have some fun, try to connect with, someone in the
I
neighborhood.
would love to be
goes to that
there.
bar.
When I come to New York to get AOC's autograph, I'm coming to check you out. I would love to go to karaoke with you.
Yeah, that would be great. Are you gonna do something? Are you gonna perform?
I mean, I will, but I love
Okay.
to do, I'm not gonna perform by myself.
Well, yeah, we're gonna do some fun stuff. That'll be fun. We'll do some fun stuff. But yeah, when shit gets back to normal, I mean, yeah. But no, I'm not straight edge. I've never been.
Yeah, no, I wasn't trying to be ish when I asked you that question because I didn't even consider marijuana because I know some people just don't consider marijuana a drug, and I forgot that you drink.
No, the straight edge people consider everything a drug. They don't
Even caffeine.
Yeah, they don't even do caffeine. Some of
What
them
about
don't
sugar?
even probably do sugar, right?
I was about to say, what about sugar?
Sugar and caffeine for some people are totally, yeah. If you're really, and so the
Because they're
original straight
addictive.
edge people, yeah, and then also sex for some people, that was a thing. It was like sex, sugar, caffeine. And I had a friend who was straight edge in college, and like
Wait a minute,
probably
what?
the first time he had sex, he got his girlfriend pregnant.
Well,
Because he was
Wait,
like,
and he was like, "See," he's like, "See."
Who's writing the book on this?
I don't know,
Who
some
was it
bands
said,
in the
you know,
80s.
I'm
That
more
sounds
straight.
like
I'm
someone.
so straight edge that I don't participate in sexual activity.
Well,
It
it
sounds like
evolved
someone who
because
doesn't. Sounds like someone who doesn't like that band that does
Sex
Californication.
Pistols.
No,
Oh,
the Red Hot Chili
Red Hot Chili
Peppers.
yeah, it
Peppers.
sounds like someone who doesn't like the Red Hot Chili Peppers. They have Blood, Sugar, Sex, Magic. Was that the name of the album?
Yeah,
Sounds
it
like someone
evolved
whose
in the
last name
80s
is
because
Epstein.
in the 80s, the punk scene in the 80s was a lot of partying, specifically like the LA punk scene was partying and violence, a lot of violence and kind of like brawling and like people getting really hurt and drinking a lot of drugs. So people were like, let's kind of do our own thing. And our scene will be about not drinking and the violence they kept though. They kept the violence. But they were trying to like clean up their act a little bit.
They kept
Like,
the
we'll
violence.
drink.
Wasn't
they
that
away
the
all the
main
fun-
part?
We'll take
Wasn't that
away
the
all
main
the
part
fun
they were
stuff.
trying to get rid of?
We'll take away all the
I
fun
think it
stuff
was-
and do the stuff that isn't fun.
Yeah, wasn't the violence the main thing they wanted to get rid of?
I know, they couldn't let it go. And then there would be like actual fights. Straight edge people would like beat up people that drank, and there would be like literal straight edge gangs of people that would just like start like violent altercations with people.
Also, you're beating up the people who aren't in control of their faculties.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we couldn't beat you up yesterday, but now
Yeah,
we're
I mean, the
sober and
American
you're
punk
not.
scene was pretty rough for a while before people were like, hey, we could probably just enjoy this music without beating the shit out of each other.
Now, is this crossover with like Seattle grunge?
That was much later.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was much later. But yeah,
That's
that wasn't a
interesting.
violent music scene either. That was later. So by the end of the 80s, people were just kind of enjoying the music and the culture and the camaraderie without like beating the shit out of each other.
So the
And that
punk
worked out
scene
much better.
required violence.
It was a violent music scene. Yeah, there were essentially gangs and then rival gangs, and then who the fuck knows why they wanted to beat the shit out of each other all the time. It was just a part of the culture. It was very strange.
Now, when the punk scenes and the hip hop scenes were coming up together, was that when the punk scene was still violent?
Insane
Yeah.
Clown Posse.
In the 80s, it was rough. Yeah, it was specifically the hardcore scene was the most violent, but the punk scene was violent too. Like it was just like it was all about like being tough and a contrarian and like dismissive of mainstream culture, but it manifested itself in a way that people were just like you could really get hurt at a punk show.
It's like
Wait, did you
anti-authoritarianism.
Did you say Insane Clown Posse?
Hmm.
That's not
Punk hip
that's
hop.
not punk.
Well, they're like
Or
hip hop
hip-hop.
punk
No.
fusion.
No,
They
Yeah.
would like you to feel that way about them. I don't know. If
They're
that's
not
true.
I mean,
They're
they're
not punk.
obviously they're a gang, but they're the Juggalos, but they're definitely hip hop punk fusion, right?
they're not punk.
There's something. No, they're not punk.
Well, first of all, they're later. First of all, they're later than punk. I mean, their fusion is maybe some kind of rock, but certainly not punk.
Well, I
There's
mean,
something, but I don't know what they are.
I remember specifically the Red Hot Chili Peppers telling me on my TV that they didn't want to win the Grammy for the song they won a Grammy for because they felt it was a hip hop song.
Oh, the
Oh, you're
Red
talking
Hot
about
Chili
the Insane Clown
Peppers.
Posse.
Yes. And
Wait,
I'm only
so now-
saying that to say that I guess if the Insane Clown Posse feels like they're punk, I don't know. Like
I don't think
you
they
know,
feel like they're punk.
Wait, are we
Oh,
talking
okay.
about the Red Hot Chili Peppers or the Insane?
Yeah. No,
Punk
because
Posse.
I'm only using that to say that because I know you're saying they're not punk, and I just don't know either way. I'm being educated, but I remember the Red Hot Chili Peppers won a Grammy for a song that they said, well, we won, but we wanted our song to be judged as a hip hop song because it's a hip hop song.
Do you know
Even
what
though
song
nobody
it
in
was?
America considered that song a hip hop song. It was that one first big hit they had. Give it away, give it away, give it away, give it away now.
Oh,
What was the Grammy for? What was the Grammy category?
I
what
can't. It
song
was
was it?
back when they won it, but yeah, they
Oh, that
definitely.
song wasn't hip hop. What are they
No,
talking about? That's
here's my point. I'm with you on that.
yeah,
They, the little flea dude
yeah,
was like, it's a hip hop song. I'm like, what?
yeah. Sorry, Flea. Sorry,
Nobody with
Flea.
you considers the song a
Yeah,
hip
But
hop
can I?
song.
nobody.
I know we're on a
But
very different topic, but I still really want to know who the white people that are eating unsalted white rice are. Do you know?
ask Ish. I think he might maybe he was in the barracks with them or something.
Nah, no.
Ish has to
All
know
right.
And
these people.
you
I don't
have
know.
some nerve to talk, Erica. Y'all season y'all food with raisins.
I don't.
Y'all actually created a brand called Lowry's Unseasoned Salt that y'all just sprinkle on stuff to make it look like salt, but it don't taste like anything.
How do you know that I had anything to
Unseasoned
do
salt.
with it?
Unseasoned salt.
Then it's just salt.
No, it's not even seasoned. It's just flavorless. It's just crystals. It's like diet
That's
salt.
not real. That's
It's
not
just-
real. And how do you know white people
No.
made that? Look that up.
Nobody made it. I made it up. But I do know there was this meme that went around that had different cultures' seasonings. So it had like black people with Lowry's, it had, Latinx people with Goya, and white people had the box of sun-dried raisins.
That
I'm
Goya
like, yes.
Racist.
Goya tastes so good too.
No, not all Latinos eat Goya. That's some racist shit.
I like Goya. Not all black people eat Lowry's, but I sure got some up in my cabinet.
Yeah, there's certainly tons of Goya and and
I got a bottle of
certain
Tabasco
neighborhoods.
sauce in the refrigerator.
You know, it's interesting. I mean, I feel like people who aren't Latino will just kind of lump all the cultures together. And so people say, "Oh, you live so close to Mexico. There must be like a lot of salsa clubs." It's like, why would there be salsa clubs? Like, that's a Puerto
Right.
Rican thing. It's a Colombian thing. There's no salsa clubs. And then it's like, oh, then there's lots of Goya. There's no Goya in the grocery store around here. People aren't buying Goya to cook.
Like
their
asking a
Mexican
Puerto
food.
Rican
Well,
person
first
how
of
good their
all,
tacos are.
you guys have great authentic food where you live. So yeah, I mean, you don't. Yeah, that wouldn't sit well over there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess Goya is probably specific. It's not just some general Latinx thing, but over here it's like certainly more.
You're gonna
Right.
find Goya in a
Ubiquitous.
Puerto Rican's house.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I don't know, probably college, probably white boy college kids were eating
Eating
unseasoned
plain
rice.
white rice.
Yeah, I don't know.
First of all,
Definitely
first
the last time I heard it, it was definitely
First of all, you
definitely a
just
white
messed
dude.
up there, Mike. As I was telling my friend Carrie, who's also white, no kid who's under the age of 30 has rice in their house. Like rice is something that you grab.
They order
get to a
Chinese
certain.
food.
Yeah, they order it,
Exactly.
but they
Thank you.
don't have the
No,
bag
Thank
of rice
you,
in their
Erica.
house. Most
I didn't
people
say
don't even
anything
look,
about
white rice.
didn't say anything about bags of rice. I
most
said
people don't
they
even
eat.
learn how to cook rice
I didn't say
until,
anything about that. I
until
said
they're
they
like 30
eat.
with kids.
I said they eat plain, unseasoned white rice.
But
Didn't
they're
say
doing it
who's
because
cooking
they
it.
eat the Chinese food and they
Right.
are out of food. All they have left is the white rice. So it's not because they want the white rice. It's because they're hungry.
But
They're
see, this is the
hungover,
weird.
and they need
No, but
something.
Erica, this is the weird part. Because if you put me in that situation, I'm not eating that until I find some soy sauce or something. Now, I wouldn't do this anymore because that's nasty, and I just don't need that in my life. But back then,
Let me have some rice
you're not
right
finding
now.
you're not finding me do that unless I put a little leftover with some sauce on it.
I have the
Like, I
privilege
used
of
to
being a
even-
super taster, so I taste things better than the two of you.
Yeah, you're tasting some. You're
I can
extracting.
appreciate
You're
the
using your
taste of things.
superpower to extract taste where there is none. That's a superpower.
Well, I mean, I can't help it that your taste buds aren't as acute as mine.
You're just imagining
Yeah.
taste.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm
you have-
imagining enjoying the taste of white rice, especially
Yes.
jasmine rice. Oh, it's
Yeah,
so good.
you're definitely imagining that.
It's
But
not like
yeah,
I sit
no matter
around
how
eating
hungry-
spaghetti noodles.
No matter how hungry I was, Erica, there was no, I'm gonna sit down and eat this rice. I mean, I've been poor. I've been so poor. Like, I only had a 25-cent bag of potato chips all day, and I still wasn't eating. There was still salt in the house. There was still soy sauce in the house. Like, there are still things you could put on that rice to give it a little bit of taste.
Did you see
What
this
does the
with your own
25%
eyes?
of potato chips have to do with anything?
Because we're talking about poverty and not being able to afford. She was talking about the college kid is eating the white rice because he's poor and there's nothing else to eat. And I said, you can still put some salt on there. That's where that came from.
But I just want to know if you witnessed this happen. Plain rice, unseasoned, being eaten.
I've heard people brag.
Would you guys like me to show you?
No, absolutely. I don't need to see that. No, I've heard white boys brag about it.
I have a big
Oh,
container
yeah,
of steamed
I like
jasmine rice.
Oh yeah, I
I have this.
like white rice. I'll eat it plain.
Let me tell you something though, because I take people for their word. I remember I was in high school. I had a boyfriend in high school. He was always talking about how much he loved white rice. So I was like, all right, cool. I'm heading over to his house. So I went to the Chinese place and I just got him white rice because he's always talking about how much he loves
that
it.
was
And I
foul.
handed that
You
to
called
him
him
and he
out.
was like, what is this? And I was like, you always talk about how much you love white rice.
That was foul. Was that the end of your relationship with him?
No.
Okay.
And he was like, yeah, I like white rice with stuff on it, but all he ever talked about was how much he loved the white rice. So I just assumed he all loved. So maybe you were just confused.
I love white rice. I love it with stuff on it, but I also can eat it plain. It's not like I'm just gonna opt to eat it plain if I don't have a choice.
Erica,
like
I understand what you're
eating bowls of white rice.
Erica, I understand what you're saying. Trust me. I sussed this out of them. Like, are you telling me that you are eating white rice with nothing else? And they said, yes. I like the taste. Yes.
Who, me?
I'm telling you, these people.
Oh, I was going to say, because I will eat it with nothing on it.
No, we know.
I prefer to have something on it in most cases. Like, if there's, you know what I mean?
She doesn't believe that you exist. And I'm telling her that these people do exist.
Yeah,
I know. I'm not going to advocate on behalf of all white people. Because, you know, I don't know all white people. I only know some.
That's what they do. I'm with you, Erica. She's like, you know what?
But I am going to say that it is proof that it's not just white people that are doing that.
I'm an exception to most rules.
Yeah, he's an exception. He's an exception to the rule. He really is.
It's just proof. I'm not going to advocate for all black people. Just so you know. Because I don't know all black people. I have to borrow that line from you there, Eric. Like, can't let you put that one on me. Because I'm not just every day sitting around eating bowls of white rice. I want stuff on it. However, I will, you know what it is though? And I think to my credit, and I guess the best way I can say it, Mike, because you're not wrong, right? Like it's an acquired taste, but I train so proactively. I eat, and rice is a staple of my diet that I've gotten to the point. It's kind of like that person that can just drink egg yolks.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? Like that person that can just crack 2 eggs, throw them in a cup, not mix anything else with it, and just drink them and then go out the door for a run.
Only in movies.
Plain unseasoned tofu. I like it.
That is horrible. See, that you should not admit.
I was gonna say, Mike, I'm exonerated right now. Just exonerated.
I usually I'll prefer to put salt on it, but I can slice tofu and just eat it straight.
That just exonerated me.
That is weird shit. Now, Erica, you have set vegans back many years.
Yo, he set vegans back.
Because even to this day, I avoid places that have grill in their name or places that offer grilled tofu because it's always nasty. They don't season the tofu at all.
Well, we had this conversation earlier. I don't like tofu.
They just slap grilled tofu on your sandwich and you bite into a nasty, unseasoned thing, and they just act like it's supposed to taste good. But it's like, no.
But when it's cooked, it's different.
We have to wait till Christmas to eat it.
Unseasoned cooked tofu, I don't like, but I can take the brick, slice it.
No, I mean, can we
and
eat
just
it?
eat the slice with a little bit of salt on it. And it's
Oh,
pretty
okay.
good.
Well, at least you're putting salt on it. At least
No,
you're doing
Erica, I
that.
heard you say it. I heard you say it. I heard you say, and I like it.
I like it.
heard it. Like, I can't unhear that.
At least you're putting salt on it, which puts you still a cut above ish at this point.
No,
with this.
no, you're not going to ignore that she said I can eat unsalted tofu. That's what she said. And then she said, and I like it. Like you're not going to just discount that all of a sudden because she said
I like it better with salt on it, but I can do it.
That's
you,
weird.
when white people say salt,
are you sure
try
you
it?
No, I'm not gonna.
Tofu,
no, I'm not gonna try it.
And
That's
salt
nasty.
that, and then just eat it.
No, I'm not gonna
when
try it.
White people say salt, they mean raisins.
That's nasty. You know how many nasty sandwiches I've had from places that did not season their
tofu? They didn't put salt on it. When it's not cooked, it's really absorbent. So because it's it's still like really moist. So if you put a bunch of salt on an absorbent. If you put some salt on a raw, uncooked piece of tofu, it absorbs all the salt. It's good.
Salt is not seasoning. No, that's not good.
A little black pepper on that.
You know what tofu feels like? Seems like to me is like if you take.
How about a bunch of black seasoning, like onion powder, garlic powder?
Little paprika would be good.
Yeah, and just all the seasonings.
I'm just saying that if you're in a hurry and you don't, you're out of all your seasonings.
If I'm in a hurry, I'll grab an apple. If I'm in a hurry, I'll grab an apple. I'm not gonna.
There's no apple. It's just tofu and a salt shaker, and you're gonna be good to go.
Well, it's called...
I just want to say my mother-in-law just made me a 7-Up cake.
Oh yeah, that's like a 90s thing. I remember stuff like that from the 90s.
I remember that.
Yeah.
It's a black person thing. We make pound cakes with flavors.
My dad, one morning, he made pancakes and we were out of milk, so he made it with orange slice. Best pancakes I've ever had in my life.
I can imagine those are really good.
Oh man, never had a better pancake.
Were they really fluffy because of the carbonation?
I don't think so.
No, that was real. That was a real question.
I mean, I was too little. Like
I love soda cakes.
Flavor.
So I can tell. I can imagine that pancake was good because I love.
Soda cakes are fluffy, right?
Yeah, they're fluffy. Mm-hmm. My mother-in-law uses orange or strawberry or orange soda for, this is a 7-Up. It's strictly 7-Up with the 7-Up glaze. But yeah, she'll put like orange in it or. I love soda cakes.
You were asking me about nut milks earlier. Mm-hmm. You can't go wrong with chocolate flavor. If you have chocolate flavor nut milk, you might fall in love with it.
Yeah.
So whether it's almond, whether it's whatever, do they have chocolate flavor?
What other nuts do they use for milk?
Cashew.
Yeah, I think they do.
I don't think I love cashews. I don't think I like cashew. I can't stand macadamia.
Cashew milk is good. It's creamy. It's good. I'd recommend it. They have hemp
It's
milk.
interesting because you know what cashew milk reminds me of? I often tell people I love pizza, but I wouldn't want to drink it. Like I love cashews, but like I can't imagine how it would taste as a drink.
Well, you gotta imagine that they only put so many cashews in it. It's still basically a lot of water, Mm-hmm. Remember, I was telling you the difference between soy milk and the other nut milks. Soy milk is thicker than the other nut milk, so the other nut milks are still watery. So I don't think it's going to be that rough on you.
I did try almond milk for the first time today, Erica, and I enjoyed it.
Did you plain or chocolate?
Plain.
And did you have the unsweetened kind? I prefer the unsweetened kind.
Unsweetened.
Yeah, he had unsweetened.
I happened to be talking to Mike about milk and opened up my refrigerator, and my wife had a container in there. So I poured myself like a little shot. It doesn't have a flavor to it, right? It tastes like water, but like thicker. Because I don't like the way water tastes, but this has some body to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you just pour a glass of that with a nice piece of salted tofu, raw.
Nah. I would never drink it plain. I'd want it in cereal with like a spoonful of sugar or but this is blue almond breeze, almond milk.
That's my least favorite almond milk, but I feel like it has too much of an aftertaste.
Almond breeze.
Yeah.
I never noticed.
I've been getting
an
into pea
aftertaste.
milk.
To what
Which
milk?
sounds pea, like the tiny green pea, not like
Well,
urine milk.
they
but
call
pea.
it Ripple.
Ugh.
They call it Ripple because
Yeah,
pea
Ripple.
milk would not sell an ounce. I actually
I
had
don't
my
like
first
peas.
bottle. I actually had my first bottle. You can't. It doesn't taste like peas. It's just
No.
it's pea protein. You don't. It doesn't taste like pea. Really,
Although
to
I
me,
do like
pea milk.
split pea soup, and I like peas right off the pod.
Yeah, to me, Ripple milk, tasted like I was drinking like almond milk or something. I didn't notice a difference in taste. Really.
Well, it just froths up really well. I like to steam it and like have it with like a cup of tea or something in a
Mhm.
milk frother, and it's
Okay.
really
Is it green?
frothy when you put it in a frother. What?
Is it green?
No, it's like milk color.
It's the same milk color.
What other types of milks are there? Pecan
All
milk.
the milks. If you can
That's
eat
a
it, you
good
can
question.
milk it.
Actually, yes, that's true. You know what, Ish? I think there is a pecan milk, and I came this close to getting it, but it was on the wrong section in the store. It was mislabeled, so I thought I was getting something reasonably priced, and then I get up to the counter, and it's a ridiculous price. I'm not going to pay for something like that, so I'm like, nah, I'm good. So, I mean, you can imagine as the nut gets more expensive, the nut milk gets exponentially more expensive.
Like
So,
a
We got
pine
like
nut milk, that'd be like
cashews are.
$1,000.
I know
Actually-
cashews, pecans, and pistachios are like pretty high up there as far as nut prices
Well,
go.
you'd be surprised. So the best deal you could probably get is cashew milk because it's surprisingly normally priced, especially from who
Because
sells
cashews
it.
are expensive.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a good deal. Who does cashew milk? There's Blue. There's
Like
what
so
did he
so
say?
delicious or something.
Oh, is
Blue
it So
Diamond.
Delicious?
Yes, I think they do it.
Yeah. So yeah, whoever does it, maybe So Delicious has good prices on it. But the pecan milk was too expensive. But I was very intrigued. I was very.
I'm not
Erica,
gonna
which
lie,
nut
I'm
did
still
you say
stuck
was
on
really
this grape
expensive?
thing.
Yeah,
Macadamia
I
is really
try
expensive.
not to dwell on it so hard. I can't stand. Ugh. I don't
Yeah,
know why. What it is about
macadamia,
macadamia is.
I
like,
feel like
ugh.
it was kind of watered down. I don't remember it too much. I feel like it might have been kind of watered down. I
Yeah, the
do
grape
like,
thing changed my life. By the way,
I do like hemp milk, especially depending on who makes it. Especially since hemp milk has some good nutrition.
see, Erica,
I think it's
as I was
funny
telling you,
that I just think it's funny that we all got stuck with this grape thing because some white lady and her family started putting grapes and shit.
yo,
and then
it's
they-
funny. It's funny you said that because as I was telling you, I do food commentaries, and I'm often considering things like, who sat down one day and was like, this is missing something. I know. You know what I mean? It just sliced up some grapes, or like there's certain things that just like mess with my head. Like, who decided that we needed to make sugar plums? And why? Who put like the little fig seeds inside of jelly donuts?
Little what?
Like things like that. Like, why?
Jelly donuts?
You know how like when you buy
Skin?
some jelly donuts, you'll get and they'll have like the little fig seeds, like the little seeds inside the jelly donut, and it's like, why?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Like
sounds good.
strawberry seeds, you mean?
No,
Whatever they
fig
are, they're like
seeds.
crunchy like seeds that they just put inside of jelly donuts.
I
Not
didn't
all
know
jelly
that.
donuts.
I didn't
I've
know
never
that.
heard of that.
That sounds new.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, it's not new. Since I was a kid. Not every because I don't buy them because I don't like them. But
Are they
I
actually
found
figs?
out I didn't like them when I was a kid.
Are
I don't
they
know if they're
actually
Is it
fig
actually
seeds. They're like
maybe rat poop?
they're like seeds.
I think you went
that
to
they'll
a
put
donut place
inside
that
the
had a lot
jelly.
of mice.
That actually sounds
No,
good.
no. It's something that they do, and to me, I'm a texture person. It's the reason why I don't like nuts in my brownies, because it's like the textures are way too contrasting.
It sounds like you're a really picky eater.
I'm. It's so funny how liberal of an eater I am. I'll try anything. Like I'm a foodie, so I'll try anything. But once there's certain things that I am picky about certain things, for sure.
Do you like
Yes,
fish?
I can't argue that.
Do
I
you
love
like fish? Okay.
Love fish.
I was gonna call you foodie in the no fish, but I guess I can't.
No,
call you
I
that.
definitely love fish. But no, I there are certain things that I am picky about. Certain textures, to me, in certain flavors to me, right? Because like I was saying earlier, like the super taster thing, like I taste flavors, which is one of the reasons why I'm not like huge on barbecue sauce, because I taste the contrast between like that. I don't I don't have a problem with sweet and spicy, but that contrast, like the pineapple juice or the brown sugar or the maple versus the spices, to me just they don't click.
Well, it's also because there are different versions of barbecue sauce, and like people from other areas who love their barbecue sauce probably think that the barbecue sauce that you don't like is whack. They probably like people who do barbecue sauce that's too sweet. That's like considered like the cheap, shitty, like northern version of barbecue sauce. Like when
Yeah,
you
but
get
see, the
into
thing
the
is, I'm from the South.
mustard. Oh, so then
I'm first generation. Like I grew up. The thing is, any type of sugar that you put in barbecue sauce, I can taste it. That's why I went down the list of the different maple, pineapple juice, or brown sugar, which is usually the sugars that are put in barbecue sauce. Not all,
do you
but one
have
of
to
them.
put do you have to put sugar? Do you have to put a sweetness in barbecue sauce? Is that
My
like
brother-in-law doesn't, which is why I love his barbecue sauce. He's a saucier. He doesn't use a sweet base.
yeah,
Not when he's making it for me.
I'd like to try that because I'm not into the sweetness either. I like mustard based barbecue sauces.
I
I
like
like
I'm
that
with you
I
on
feel
that.
like
taste.
ketchup, I feel like I hate ketchup as a condiment because it just tastes like candy
Sure.
on my food.
Yeah,
Well, it's
well,
really sweet,
especially
right?
the nasty mainstream stuff. If you get into some of the organic ones, they're better. I actually had a ketchup today that I'm pretty sure was like organic, but it had a sweetness to it, but it was different. Like I almost feel like they used beet juice or something because it was really red. And it was from this place called Chloe's, which is a vegan joint, and their stuff is like I haven't eaten fries in a long time just because, I don't, eat that for health reasons, but this was like it said it was like air baked fries or
Oh, air
whatever.
fried? Yeah.
Well, it was funny. It
I
said
like them
air
with mayonnaise.
baked, which is kind of weird, but it
Well,
said
air
air
frying
baked.
is like the hotness. So they probably just turned their oven on in like convection style and called it air baking instead of air frying.
Right.
I
Maybe.
like my fries with mayonnaise.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's a Belgium thing, right?
French.
I picked it up in Germany.
Oh,
Let me
okay.
tell you, a friend turned me on to, and I didn't really like it, but like I tried it. My friend's from the Netherlands, and they dip their artichokes in mayonnaise.
But see,